Everybody, welcome to episode number 47. So we're going to start off today with a little bit of sad news for our regular listeners, which is this is going to temporarily and perhaps long-term be the last episode we do for a bit of time. And the reason is not because we don't love everybody who listens. We appreciate everyone who watches, everyone who's listened, who's asked a question, who's come on the show. But that in a financial perspective, after looking at this for 9 or 10 months now, we have wound up with approximately $2,000+ of losses per month that we've done this, because we have to pay Justin, who's done a great job. Prior to him, it was Angel. Ben's apartment is filled with lights. And not only that, it takes a lot of time. So the hope was that after around 9-10 months or a year, we could get it to financially feasible. We didn't get there. So for that reason, we're going to slow down. That said, thank you so much to everyone who has listened, who has downloaded an episode on iTunes, who watched on YouTube, who asked a question, who spoke to us on this. To the people who've come on, we actually have 2 guests today. We're going out with a bit of a bang. But thank you guys so much. It was very fun. I wish it would have caught on a little bit more, but quite frankly, it's our fault.
Yeah, that's on us. That's not on you guys.
That's not your fault at all. That's totally us. So there's going to be more exciting stuff coming, but with that said, thank you, and let's wind down.
One other thing, we're still going to keep the platform open for some conversations if something very important happens in our lives, if we get someone that we think is a truly exceptional guest. So stay subscribed. And yeah, there actually are a couple people lined up over the next 2 months or so. So it's not dead, but it is going to stop being shot regularly.
Yep. So thank you. Here we go.
Great news, though, for everyone who was lucky enough to tune into the last episode. We have 2 guests today.
Woo!
Hello.
We have returning guest, reality TV star of Australia, Benji Wilson.
Nice to be back.
And Henry Hooper. International sunglass mogul Henry Hooper.
I haven't been invited officially. I forced my way on here.
Nah, I wanted you here, dude. The people need to know. What's it like being an international sunglass mogul?
Where do I start, Ben? It feels great. Just, protect people from the biggest killer of everything and creator of everything, the sun.
The sun.
Yeah.
Big ball of fire.
Yep.
Henry protects your eyes. Vitru.com.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Wow.
What's going on, man?
Impressive. I was going to think of questions as we went. Off the top of my head, if I had to ask a question, I'd like to ask about the podcast. Mm-hmm. I'd like to ask, why is it temporary closing?
Mm-hmm. I mean, Ben kind of said it. So we started it as an experiment. And the thought experiment was, what could we do for not an infinite amount of time, but without an end in sight, that we normally do and we would like to get paid for? And the answer was have conversations with one another. And then it didn't make any money, and in fact costed us $2,000 a month for about 9 months in a row. So $18,000, probably $20,000 later with all the equipment.
Yeah. Good experiment, though.
Yeah.
The idea was basically Charisma on Command is starting to get training for Charlie, especially making breakdowns. It is work. What wouldn't be work? What would be fun to do forever? Talking to each other.
I feel like you didn't push it enough to get monetized, though. Because you guys didn't really push for any monetization, right?
Well, you grow the audience first, I think.
Yeah.
I think first you grow the audience, and then you try to make money. So we did hit up some people for sponsorships. People were willing to do $100 an episode. So then you could go from $100 a month to $900 a month. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, I guess you could do that. I think the main goal is grow an audience. And then from there, once you have an audience of people that love what you're doing, money is easy, right?
So are you saying first goal was not achieved? So you were not able to grow the audience at the pace you wanted and therefore haven't tried to monetize?
Yes. The only growth spikes the podcasts have had were when we did calls to action from Charisma on Command. At no point did it, in the last 9 months, get an organic push from word of mouth or reviews. Like there's no...
A significant organic push, because for sure it's been trending upwards and getting organic traffic.
Slightly. So almost barely, imperceptibly. So the biggest problem is that when we ask ourselves, why would people listen to this podcast who have never heard of it? The answer is they wouldn't. The only people that would ever do it are who are already fans of Ben and I. And even of the 3 million people who like Charisma on Command, 17,000 of them are interested in this, which is very, very small.
So what percentage do you think is organic, and how sure are you that how are you measuring that?
I can look at it. So every day we grow by about 30 subscribers on YouTube a day. So if you multiply that out, that's what, 9,000 people or 10,000 people in a year?
In a year, yeah.
So it's sort of
linear.
extrapolating that. And it could go faster than that, of course.
Sure. I mean, that's how Charisma on Command grew, right?
It's so
We've
yes,
been doing
but
it for
that's
9 months though.
It's
and it
not
has
how
not-
this has gone.
It has
Yeah.
not taken off. Charisma on Command did not take 9 months of videos to do well.
No,
The
it took
first
far
video
fewer
did
than
well.
that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so Charisma on Command in 9 months went from, so that would take us November to approximately what, July or August. Yeah, we had, I don't know if we had our first 100,000, but with no external push, we had a much larger audience than
Is
this.
that even with like the pencil posture stuff in Brazil you did?
No, because that was 2014. I did one of those and then stopped for 2 years. If you
Yeah.
want to include that, you could call that.
Because I feel like that's what this is for the podcast.
So we should shut down for 2 years and then come back with a much more interesting format, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just
'Cause
keep
if-
tweaking the format. Because your growth is
Exactly.
there. I think for me, Charisma on Command is so massive. Like if this was in place of Charisma on Command, Charisma on Command didn't exist, and you were looking at the growth numbers on this, you'd be like, wow, it's actually pretty good. But because you just get 300,000 views in a day on a YouTube video, it doesn't look as impressive.
Well, I would
this
actually,
format.
I would actually disagree, and I would say if anyone in the audience could come to me and say, "Hey, I'm going to start a podcast, no topic, not about a particular thing. I'm not a professional comedian, so it's not going to be top 1% funniest podcast. It's me and my friend, and we're going to talk about what interests us." I'd say you should not do that if you ever expect it to be successful. Like if someone else pitched me this from
Monetarily.
theirs, I'd say only do this if you're willing to do it for 5 years, and it will never be successful. It's not a good selling proposition. Like
Yeah.
Charisma on Command, why do I watch it? Because it will make you more charismatic and more confident, and it's very highly produced.
Yeah.
Why should you watch this? If you think Charlie and I are interested
It makes you more intelligent for sure.
to watch this.
Yeah, expands your brain, gives you new perceptions.
Yes.
You guys are very likable. I think there's a
Thank you.
lot of reasons
Thanks, dude.
to watch it. You guys will.
Thank you. The thing is, when it's a new person who's never heard of us, they're comparing it to, oh, I want to learn. Should I listen to Malcolm Gladwell's podcast? Should I listen to NPR's How Does It Work podcast? Or should I listen to the Charlie and Ben podcast? If we made this the Charisma on Command podcast and only talked about charisma, it would have a much better chance of doing well. But it needs, the point was to see, can you do it with no prep, no effort, and no restrictions on what we talk about?
Yeah.
Because if we are going to talk about charisma, let's just spend an extra couple of days scripting it, making it really good, and then putting it on the Charisma on Command channel.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So podcasts can work, but it's tough to start a podcast where there's no restrictions, no prep at all to make the content tighter. You know what I'm saying?
I do. I'm also down to switch lanes if we want to jump into some fun stuff. But
Sure.
otherwise, I'll keep going on the question.
Do you disagree with the decision?
Yeah, I do.
Interesting.
I think it'd be very easy and very quick to be able to grow this podcast organically.
What do you think we'd have to do?
Well, first, I guess I want to understand when you say make a podcast successful, are you talking about covering costs? Are you talking about covering living expenses or
Lifestyle.
a specific audience size?
Make enough money that we could have it be our sole source of income without a change in lifestyle.
Okay.
Which is less than Charisma on Command. Charisma on
Yeah.
Command makes enough to be
So
an
low
expansive business.
low six figures each. I feel like that's so easy to do.
What would
So
you-
we're at
what would you-
$1,200 a year right now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, even in the negatives. But
We're at negative. That's rev.
Oh yeah, sorry.
That's rev.
you just
Sorry,
start.
that's if we don't pay Justin.
I would leverage your list is the most obvious thing to do. Leverage it in a stronger way. I think there's a lot of people. I mean, there's millions of people out there who would love to listen to you. You don't need to compare to Malcolm Gladwell. If he gets 100 million downloads and you get 1 million, you've covered your costs. You're
sure.
successful.
Absolutely.
So you don't need to go head to head with these guys. You just need to grow your exposure.
Even if one fan just wanted to watch it 1 million times, that might be, you know,
If someone's out
some
there.
dedicated person wants to watch it on loop 1 million times.
I feel like what I would suggest is you just, what is that goal? If it's $300,000 a year, work backwards from there. How many viewers do we
wrote
need
it
for
out.
that?
We wrote it out. It's
Yeah.
roughly of revenue $400,000 to minus costs, minus split in half, taxes, all that
Taxes
kind
and
of stuff.
Yep.
Of revenue for the podcast is what the goal was, and then the viewership that was associated with that is roughly maybe a little bit less, 100,000 combined listens per episode, twice a week. It might be less than that. It might be 75. It might be 80, but that's the approximate.
So you're close
number.
to 10% of that way.
We are, yes, less than 10% of the way there.
But that 10% is it's so exponential. That 10% is the same as that next 90%.
So I think one thing that is worth factoring in, all of the subscribers, not all, 80% of the subscribers came from calls to action on the Charisma on Command YouTube channel. Those have been getting diminishing returns. The fifth mention of the podcast did not bring in as many subscribers as the third.
What did it bring in?
So I roughly know the numbers. So the first one, in terms of subscribers, and these aren't necessarily directly related to listens, but they're close. So YouTube subscribers from the first call to action was over 1,000 to 2,000 people.
Subscribe. But are we measuring subscribers or views?
Like literally the day that I said, hey, this podcast is there, it spiked at over 1,000. And then it went down. So it's probably...
But shouldn't we be looking at views, not subscribers, since the goal is...
Oh, well, they move in tandem.
Views are actually like... Yeah, they're up on average because of the clips, and Justin's come up with a nice system, but they're down. They're not growing per episode.
Yeah.
Views are actually not trending up per episode.
Yeah, check it out, man. It's
Really?
crazy.
Yeah.
Well, our best episode, one of our best, is still one that we did at the time of Keanu Reeves last year, which was last summer, which is before many of our calls to action.
Yeah, if every episode
that's
got
almost
more...
That's almost better.
If every
that we
episode...
Because
haven't
the
grown.
longer you have them up, the better they do.
No, not all of them. It means that we haven't grown since that point. It means that a good title last August is just as good as a good title this February.
So within that
which means
first
that our
month compared to these first months, that was higher, or that's higher overall compared to this?
So okay, so this is we've posted clips, we've posted a lot of stuff, and we can cut this if this isn't interesting for people. But we've had spikes because, for instance, we posted clips and we weren't posting clips, so then it looks like views go up. But when you take out the clips and you just go on a per episode basis, what you find is that it's probably gone like this, like barely up. And which means some of our best episodes that we've ever shot were some of our first ones in terms of listens and views. And it means that we could do an episode 2 weeks ago that did worse than that, which is to say that our subscriber base has not grown. I cannot release a video on the Charisma on Command channel that does worse than an average video a year ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I can.
It'd be different if they were going... If the podcast looked like 1,000 listens, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500.
Sure.
And now we're at 10,000, and you're like, well, that's way smaller than Charisma on Command. I wouldn't shut it down because I'd be going, well, look at this.
Yeah.
But that's not what's
So
happening.
just to clarify once again, we can switch lanes if we want.
We can cut it.
Otherwise, I'm just going...
We can cut this if it's
I'm
boring,
going
it's
like
fine.
a bull.
No, say
when I
everything
was-
you want to say, and we'll cut everything that you...
When I was here last time, we had... I was talking to you, and you guys were averaging about 4,500.
Yeah.
And now you're at 7,500.
4,500 combined?
Yeah.
I don't think that... So I know why. That's because we hadn't set up PodTrack correctly at that point. So we were incorrectly tracking our audio listens. So the only way to have an accurate measurement that is comparative from that time last year is on YouTube. And so it's on YouTube that you can sort of dive in and see... Some of those episodes have 2.2 thousand, but some of them have 4,000 and 5,000, which is very good for even today.
And we love those 5,000 people.
Yeah.
We love them to death.
If you could cover your costs, whatever they are, would you continue?
The biggest thing Ben said, is it growing? It's really not like if you showed me a roadmap for, okay, you're going to lose money hand over fist for 12 months, and then boom, in 12 months you'll instantly pop into a growth thing that covers your costs, and then again, I might continue doing it. But I don't see a route where the Charlie and Ben podcast becomes something that people listen to, because there is no unique selling proposition.
Unless
100,000 people.
it were done like Jay Shetty, who does 12-minute audios that are scripted word for word. And it's a podcast, but it's basically like our YouTube videos. You know what I mean? Very, very clean. He never says like. Everything is pre-packaged. And when you listen to it, you're like, wow, he's so eloquent. He's so good. Yeah, that's the same as when Charlie, honestly, more scripted than when Charlie's on a YouTube video. But if we're going to put that effort into content, it kind of makes sense to just put it on the Charisma on Command channel.
All right.
Because you don't enjoy that type of content.
Follow-up question.
Well, if we enjoyed the
Henry's-
content, we would just make even more. We do 2 a week
Henry's
Charisma on
raised
Command.
his hand.
Yes, Henry.
What are you going to do now? What is in future for COC?
Cock boys?
So
Is this time for you guys to let everybody know what's really going on over on there?
yes, it's time to let everyone know I'm working to improve Charisma University.
Wow.
Yeah.
So where would they get access to that?
So you would go to charismaoncommand.com/university.
Look at Benji trying to monetize.
Everyone, buy. They won't shut the podcast down.
Like, if you could cover your costs, we got $5 Patreon.
No, so what I'm going to do is for 1 month, I'm just going to improve CU. There's a couple things people really like in there. Demonstrations. So instead of just talking about it, showing it with either a breakdown, or I might hire a videographer and just follow
to
me
the
around
promenade.
for like 2 weeks. Yeah. And then worksheets every day. So people love when there's an action guide. It's 20 minutes of like what to do each day, but only a handful of them have these fill in the blank worksheets, and people love them. We have a survey and everyone's just more worksheets. So I'm going to make one for every day.
Dope.
And then in a month, I have no idea what I'm going to do.
Gotcha. You could roll emotional mastery into there too.
We should figure out something to do with emotional mastery. I looked, it makes like $1,000 a month.
But that suffers from. So we have another course for those of you who don't know that's called Emotional Mastery. I really like it. I don't know where you can get it. You got to join our.
You can't. You have to join our email list.
Join it.
It's buried.
I really like it.
It is buried.
But it's got the same problem as the Charlie and Ben podcast, which is it doesn't solve a problem that people identify as having. Now, might it ultimately be useful if you committed several hours to checking it out? I think yes about this podcast, and I think yes about that course.
Well, the course I think just needs a rebrand, though, more so than the podcast.
Yes, because it could be
the people that
change
take
the title.
The people that take it right in and say it was life changing. This is the best thing ever.
People really enjoy our podcast who wind up listening to it.
Yeah.
But it's got the same problem, which is it doesn't sell itself. The Charlie and Ben podcast, and that's what we want it to be. We don't want it to be the Charisma on Command podcast. So I don't see a world where Emotional Mastery or
we go door to door.
Yeah.
With our phones and we sit everyone down. And we say we just need an hour of your time. We just proselytize. We become evangelists.
Yeah, and so that's part of it. Versus that Bill Clinton video that I did that has this president, the 42nd or whatever president of the United States, who has excellent eye contact. It doesn't take a big push behind that for people to click that YouTube video. Plus, unlike podcasts, the entirety of our audience on YouTube is discoverable versus we're splitting between the YouTube, which is great, the YouTube algorithm, and also the podcast algorithm, which is completely undiscoverable, only shows things that are completely trending and popular, like Jay Shetty, like Whitney Cummings when she started her podcast, or H3 when they started theirs.
I appreciate how much you don't want us to shut it down, though.
What is your best performing clips? Because I could just chat about that stuff for you.
Whatever you like.
The best performing clip I think was about when James Charles had a scandal and Ben Shapiro walked off stage for an interview, and we put it into one clip, a super clip.
The separate events.
Yes.
That you made one.
Yeah.
I like
We
this.
just talked about both back to back. So it was like,
I haven't heard this news.
James Charles scandal, Ben Shapiro walks off. I think that was the title. We were like, what?
That's
James
incredible.
Charles pissed off Ben Shapiro? We should do that.
Trend stacking.
Just aggressive.
That's what we'll call it.
Just aggressive trend stacking.
Clickbaiting, trend stacking.
Trend stacking.
That's true. We haven't tried misleading our audience. We could give that a try.
I only got one thing.
You licking?
Perfect.
ContraPoints. So the guy's critiquing capitalism, which I know that you guys hate. You guys are trying to tear down the man, obviously, over here.
Down to the man.
And he said the purpose of advertising is to manufacture desires, which I thought was an interesting but incorrect assumption. I think that's often levied against capitalism, that advertising creates desires that people don't have. So they see people buying Jeeps and Gucci and they go, advertising did that. But I actually think what you learn, and you've learned this as a marketer and you've learned this too, is that you can't make people want things that they don't already want. All that you can do is tie your product to something that they desire. And so the guy goes on and he talks about, advertising endlessly creates new needs. It does all these things. And the capitalism is the reason that people are so materialistic and trying to move ahead and keep up with the Joneses. But I actually think, I don't know what you guys do, that is a mistake. That it is inherent to human nature. And the problem of acquisitiveness and materialism goes so much deeper than capitalism. And all that's happening is in this person's video that they're kind of outsourcing responsibility for the way that people are inherently to the rich 1%, the billionaires. They're the ones who have made us, want to drink Coca-Cola, and they're the ones making us fat, when in reality, we are very, very grateful to all of the advertisers that give us something to project our internal needs onto and go, oh my God, if I just had that Gucci bag, or if I just had that.
Well, I disagree
that
a
Jeep.
little bit, actually. Because I heard about, and this is just an anecdote, but I heard about some Scandinavian rock star who lives in a one-bedroom apartment and is a massive rock star in their country. And in the U.S., she'd have $100 million. And they asked her about it. They're like, do you want a mansion? She's like, no, I'm happy. And I think that's because the desires exist, the desire to feel respected, loved, looked up to. But what aggressive marketing does is it makes you feel inadequate in comparison to people who have the things that they're marketing, right? So if you see a aggressive marketing push for Porsche, and Porsche is going to get you the dating life you want or the respect you want or whatever it is, what you feel is, oh, if I don't have a Porsche, I am lacking in that. Whereas if there was no television, you wouldn't feel that. You might feel it in your community, but if you have a socialist or communist community, which by the way, I'm actually pretty pro-capitalist, but I'm just saying I think this does happen, you would look around and you'd see everyone as relatively equal. Well, does that make sense? Because what you have is as a human, I think, a comparative nature, a desire to look around and compare yourself to other people. And what capitalism lets occur is a giant gap. And then what marketing does is it can highlight that gap to you aggressively, tell you if you have this thing, you'll feel complete, but you can't afford that thing. So what you do is you take out debt to get it. And that's why you end up rolling credit cards and buying things you can't afford, which doesn't happen in countries that have a different culture, where it happens less.
So I mean, Scandinavia is capitalist. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that singular counterpoint.
No, I was saying, you said marketing doesn't create desire. And I'm saying marketing can prod desires.
Sure,
marketing
but this
inflame
person,
desires.
I'm imagining this rock star exists in a similar space to you and I and everyone else in America, which is they've been marketed to. I would say that they're having overcome that is not indicative of coming from a Scandinavian country, but
it is.
some internal...
No, because I think they live in a culture where people aren't lauded for having mansions. So even if you're seeing marketing of American people, when you look around, no one's telling you about their amazing car or their amazing house.
I mean, they have to have commercials, right? I mean, when you turn on the television in between their shows, there's
there's
TV
some difference. All I'm saying is there's some difference, right?
I actually don't know. That seems to me to be more indicative of the other point that you were saying about your immediate community being very impactful, as opposed to, like, I imagine that person sees about as many ads per day as I do. And I think what might be different in their life as compared to American life, which you highlighted, is that the community aspect that we've talked about, like they're filled up in other ways such that those ads are less
I'm saying
effective.
something is different. Something makes
yes.
America particularly terrible at feeling inadequate, having a keeping up with the Joneses mentality, desiring more money, feeling like you should be famous. That seems
agree.
to be very highlighted in the U.S.
And I think the issue is not advertising. That's what I'm saying about this person. This person's saying advertising has done this to me. And I'm saying, okay, if someone in Scandinavia, just let's take that as a prototypical Scandinavian, they're probably being advertised to in similar amounts to someone who doesn't live in Times Square. What they have different is interesting. And I think it's more to that community point that you talked about. It's more to those other things. So my only thought when I was watching that is that this is laying America's problems at the feet of the advertisers and the corporate bigwigs, as opposed to the structure that we arrange ourselves in, like we talked about, where we live in apartments that are all separate and we don't have the community support structure. So that was just my thought with regards to that.
Oh, yeah, I don't know what makes the difference, but I do think that there is something about being in the U.S. that does more to trigger desire than just the fact that humans are desirous.
Totally.
Like, there seems like a real lack of contentness in a lot of people's lives in the U.S.
Interesting. And so and you would, and I probably agree with you.
Wanting to change their circumstances. I see all my friends who are millionaires want more money. When I look online, I see a lot of people really upset at the social structures and they feel like they don't have enough money.
Yeah.
Teachers who want more money. No one I know is just happy with the amount of money they have.
Interesting. So if, and I don't know if this is all true, but let's take it as a given. Let's say that in Scandinavia, on average, that's less. But just as a presupposition, and it's more in the U.S. And I think advertising is probably fairly similar. Like, you've got TVs and you've got social media. Like, it's all still there. So what's the difference? Like, you're saying America is different. I agree. There's some sort of culture that just tells everybody that.
I haven't studied zero sociology.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts?
I don't have much.
I mean, you're from Australia. Do you think that it's the same?
So I would say one thing I noticed about the US, and I don't even know the stats, like I don't know if it is more capitalistic than Australia, but if it is, one thing I noticed is I think that the technology and the marketing is more advanced. I think they're much cleverer psychologically. When I go home sometimes and I look at one of the ads on TV and it's like, come down to the barbecue place and get a new barbecue. And like, it doesn't get you like you watch those Super Bowl ads, like the Super Bowl is just on, watch those ads. I'm like, these are ridiculously good. And I would think that may contribute to that.
So you think the advertising is less sophisticated in Australia at like really stoking? Interesting.
It definitely is.
Interesting. So it's would you say that it is, I've never been there, that it more is just like, hey, we have cars here. If you want a car, come down to the old car station and buy a car, as opposed to America, which is like, you'll get laid and you can,
the Jeep commercial.
Yeah.
You'll be a real man.
Where you drive around, there's a hot girl with a Jeep and you have a Jeep.
It's much simpler. It's much more straightforward. I don't watch much TV at all, but even the YouTube retargeting ads, you'll get Australian people selling e-commerce courses and you'll be like, God, that looks terrible.
Really?
Compared to just all across the board. And I would almost just put it down to a numbers game. We have 8% of your population, so we're going to not be as advanced. There's not much competition.
So let me ask, because I'm curious, what about the ads makes you less desirous of the product? Is it that it promises less? Is it that the polish on the ad is less?
Yeah, it's just the polish.
The polish.
It's
Okay, but the promise is the same, which is you're going to make a lot of money, for instance, on an e-commerce course, or you know, this car is going to be the greatest.
I think it's the approach, and it's just there's less competition, so the quality is just less, and there's less demand, so the competition doesn't grow that much.
Do you find I guess you don't watch a lot of ads because you don't really watch TV
many at all.
Got it. So you don't come to America and feel like you need to buy more stuff or anything like that.
I do, because Amazon is incredible here.
Okay.
Yeah, you got a better selection. So it's like you get over here, it's like, yeah, I'll take that back, that back, that back.
Got it. So this is your shopping.
Yeah, exactly.
Before you go back home.
Exactly.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
How do you sell your sunglasses? Do you make people thirsty?
Have you tried it? Have you tried just getting people super aroused and as a tangential thing, having the sunglasses be in the background?
I mean, so we went to Rome, and the only thing that came of it is that Henry and I got up at 5 a.m. to go to Trevi Fountain so that he could stand there with his iPhone and put the Trevi Fountain in the background.
Free extra turn on those videos. They love that backdrop.
You made 3 times your money on that?
Well, video just does better.
Which one was it, St.
regards
Peter's,
to
or
your
which was the
question
one that did
about
well?
desire, for me personally, it's an impulse buy. It's a low price purchase, and so people who you've seen those long for copy where they promise your desire and attach a product to it, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
For me, and probably most sunglasses, except for the big brands who make you look cool.
Yeah.
It's about getting a deal.
Just being in front of somebody and
I show them a product. Here's our deal.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward.
Got it. So they don't think that their life is going to be dramatically transformed, probably.
No, I'm not going to promise them that there'll be the really good-looking guy or girl in the photo.
Well, Yeah, it's not. Is it not girls hanging on anyone?
I pretty much showed just the product. Yeah.
Is that because you feel like it's unethical, or that's just because it's hard to produce?
I think for me, I've got direct returns when I just show the product. I've done more photos and the models, and that just hasn't panned out for this specific business. Yeah.
You've shown guys rocking your sunglasses surrounded by women, and people just don't care.
Yeah, the product sells itself for this specific niche. They'd rather just see it on somebody. They're not really aspirational to be that person or have what they have for the men's accessories. I'm also not big enough to be like, you could be Wiz Khalifa wearing this chain. Yeah. You know what I mean? So
you didn't go branding. So what was the one that did the best from Rome?
The backdrop of when we went. What was that place we went to?
St. Peter's?
Yeah.
Was it St. Peter's?
Yes. Because it's just this ridiculous 3-foot tall mural painting, and no one knows where it is, but it also because it could be any spot in that basilica.
Yeah, you just held it up at the ceiling.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
One of the things that we've talked on here that I bring you up when you're on the podcast is the people who sell, I made this much money per month, you can do it, and you'll sit there and go, oh my God, I made 10 times that, but actually my take home. So you can tell the story.
Yeah, this is my expertise, man. This is my
online scam.
Passion project.
Little background. Henry has a drop shipping business where he sells a number of products. The biggest one that he's done recently is sunglasses.
Yeah, men's accessories mostly. But I've done everything in that drop ship that you niche. If you're at all familiar with those ads, I know some of those guys. I understand their entire business model. I understand their margins on what they make, where they source the product. So I understand why they're advertising in their numbers, why they flash it. And I'll say
and for instance, so you'll see a product and go, I saw that on Alibaba today.
I know how much that is costing. Yes. You just showed me a revenue number with the amount of units you sold. I quickly did the math in my head. Shows me half of that is cost of product, and usually your advertising cost is at least 30%, especially for little knickknacks from Alibaba, AliExpress. And so I go you're $100,000, you made $10,000 over the entire year, and you're telling people to sign up for your course for freedom of their life. And your course is $1,000. And I go, you're just ripping people off for your course, and then you have one screenshot.
So let's because they'll make an ad and they'll say, I made $100,000 in 2019, and you can too. And since you know it, you go, you made $10,000.
And then connect it back with the last point. they're in a Lamborghini driving in Las Vegas or LA or a city, and they have a girl that it's mostly guys in this niche, and they have a hot girl in the video.
So they take their 10 grand and they blow it all renting a car and paying a model.
Yes.
And then where they really make their money is selling you a course so that you can buy this dream that they're not living.
So if you had, this is what my question, if you had to tell the literal truth, and you were in this niche selling what you're doing, what numbers could you come up with? Could you say, last year I made $1 million and it would technically be revenue? Like what did you make?
Yeah.
So Henry,
for me personally,
yeah. Henry made over $1 million last year.
Damn,
if he were a guru, he'd be talking about 7 figures.
But the margin on that is
I am a 7-figure branded business owner.
Okay, but let's walk that back.
Well,
so
here's the thing though, because I would happily pay Henry for his knowledge.
This is my point. Before you go ahead, I watch that video and go, I should buy his course or I should teach. And it's like really attractive to just want to jump into this niche because it seems so easy. They make it seem so easy.
Well, let's cover some of the myths. So let's first deconstruct the actual income. So you made how much last year, Rev, roughly?
Jesus Christ.
Lay it out.
Roughly, over $1 million.
Over $1 million.
Okay, and your take home was what percentage roughly of that? Your actual after profit?
Specifically on the dropship, 15%.
Okay, so that's a huge drop
still
off.
good.
It's great.
I have a branded store
amazing.
that makes 30 to 40%.
Yeah.
But when you drop from my experience, it was low.
Yeah, for drop
And
shipping.
by the way, for people who are again familiar, it's low ticket drop shipping, items under $100.
Yeah.
You can have way higher margins if you're going to go with the retailers. And
Got it. Okay, so you make that much money. What is something about the industry that people don't get, and to whom would you actually recommend if they're, join a course or sign up and do drop shipping? Is that nobody should do it? Somebody should do it? Just a few people should do it? Like, what don't they understand? And could they ask themselves if they're considering getting into some of these
I think
businesses?
you would agree the same thing. As a
you can
course
answer
teacher,
this question too.
Yeah. I would say it's a job. And go into it thinking that you're going to put a lot of work in and you're going to fail.
Your first product won't work, your second product won't work.
I failed so many times. I started in Las Vegas. I started with Benji doing FBA. You remember what I was selling?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You remember how many...
You started making some money though.
I started making money. It was great. Thank God I didn't quit my job. It's a process. I sold kitchen containers because that's my passion.
Reusable produce bags.
Reusing produce bags. I
Avocado
sold
savers.
women's choker necklaces. Remember that fad?
Yeah.
That was a great product.
So I want to codify. So 2 myths so far. One, anyone that advertises you how much money they're making, it's probably revenue, and they're basically lying because they're
It's 90% of the time revenue unless they... It's 100% of the time revenue unless they specifically say, this is my profit, because no one says that.
And sometimes they'll show you the revenue from their course sales too. So they'll say, last year I made 3 million revenue. 500 grand of that will be product revenue, 2.5 million course revenue. And so you're actually signing up at that point to maybe at your best make 500 revenue and 50 grand profit. And to your point, second myth, it's not easy. So that person, if they didn't sell a course, would make 500 grand revenue from just their product, 50 grand profit. So nice middle class job, working a full-time job.
Yep.
Also, they are not building an asset in the dropshipping business. They make 50 grand off 500, and they're just left with that cash. There's no tangible value to, I knew how to run Facebook ads last year.
Yeah.
They have a list, but like you said, the lists are pretty weak because there's 3-week ship times, right?
Yeah, if you're going to drop ship from China, when's the last time you ordered something from China? It takes at least 20 days.
Are there particular industries or because there's a million ways. I understand it. Everybody wants to make money from home and not have to have a boss, and I totally sympathize
And do
and
nothing.
encourage
They want to do it 2 hours a week.
or even to work. I encourage people to try to get out of the rat race. It fucking sucks. So in your opinion, are there particular industries that are more or less ripe for people to get into, and some that are just like, look, you're going to have a hard time in this period? Because you were saying that they don't build an asset, and it seems like if you're going to fail, you at least want to develop a skill set that is applicable in other areas. So I'm curious what you think doesn't qualify for that and what might qualify for that.
I would answer the question with something that's probably slightly different to Henry, but I would say it almost all qualifies because it's all educational.
Okay.
So if you start somewhere, and like Henry and myself, and you just keep going, you're going to learn all the lessons you need to learn anyway, and you'll find the right path. Everyone finds different paths as well. There's millions of ways to do it. But for me, what I've learned is you want to be able to build an asset, something that's going to pay you years from now. Like your YouTube channel is incredible. Udemy is amazing. A private label brand that's sustainable is amazing. And then you also want to learn the skill that gets you exponential results on it. So you've learned how to you've learned how to use the YouTube algorithm to your advantage. You have that skill in your head. And even if your YouTube channel went away, you could go consult for a YouTube channel for 6 figures like that. Yeah. Like you are financially free because of the skills and the asset you built, and not because you made $500,000 3 years ago.
Yeah. Interesting. You have done coaching on various different ways of people to make money online. You've sat on Skype calls with people. Can you tell, can you tell if someone's going to be successful based on an email or a conversation, or how they show up to a Skype call pretty quickly at this point?
Absolutely.
Okay. What marks someone who is going to be successful and someone who doesn't?
This is something I'm very intrigued by and very passionate about at the moment. Just like decoding, not just people like Henry, who I know is going to be successful, but also people who I feel like very delusional and very much I would bet against if I could.
When did you know Henry was going to be successful? Because I remember a time where we were all in Las Vegas, and the running joke was we'd walk into Henry's room and YouTube would be on.
Baboons.
Be like, what's Henry up to?
Baboons.
He's YouTubing. And we
Brazil.
were.
I was building skills and assets.
Sure. So did you? And we lived together at various points. Henry contracted for us. We paid him $1,000 to do some WordPress stuff at one point. When did you feel like you knew? We paid you $1,000. Don't say that we didn't.
It does not pay well.
It didn't pay well. Don't get me wrong. You probably did
$300
I on his credit card.
You did.
The gold credit card.
Henry,
The gold credit card.
I knew Henry would do well when he gave up the gold credit card and had to go and work. I don't know what to disclose here in certain.
You could say, Henry had to go bartend.
Bartend.
I sure did.
In a male club.
And female.
And a female club?
In a gay club.
The reason
You can disclose that. I really don't care. I'm just being facetious.
Yeah, the reason that Benji's being a little weird is because Henry worked in a gay bar in Vegas, and at one point had to walk around without his shirt on and serve shots
out of his
sometimes out of his belly button.
It's the running joke right here.
Question: were you just shirtless? I always picture you in a banana hammock.
Let's
type
go
thing.
back to the business. No, of course. Yeah, I was in my underwear.
You were in your underwear. That's what I thought.
Yeah, I was in my
Yeah.
underwear. Bartending. Luckily, I've scared the dog.
Our laughter.
moving
Our
on.
laughter.
It sucked. Go ahead. Tell more about
I
me.
also realized.
When did you know? So was it at that point that you knew when he went? Because there was a period where he even stepped away from online stuff to go make money, serving drinks and that kind of stuff.
Well, Henry's a little bit different because I didn't analyze him specifically as a skill level, but I analyze his environment. He's around 9 people who all make passive incomes online and moves around the world with them. Like, you're gonna get drawn into that.
Got it.
And also, you're doing body shots at your belly button, and you come home and I know you don't like that.
Well, credit to Henry though. Henry was making 6 figures at XS.
No.
80 grand a year. How much is a
well, then he moved to a
what is
different,
that
larger
called?
club in Vegas.
Oh, well, we're
server
talking
in
about
excess.
various points.
That's what I'm saying.
The lowest where I was most unhappy is what Benji described.
But what does someone make? So at one point, I forget the word, but you were a busboy. You were a busboy at XS, the nightclub in Las Vegas. What do they make a year?
Every year I would have in my bank $25,000.
Saved.
In my bank, saved. And I didn't really have to pay taxes because they took them out while we worked. I don't know the exact numbers. I'd say
sure, but I'm saying you
$60,000.
You didn't actually go from a job you hated to an entrepreneur. You actually you found a cushy job that paid well. You didn't like it, but your girlfriend worked there too.
Yep.
You could have coasted. You actually could have at that point given up the entrepreneur dream and just gone, this is cool. I'll do this for 10 years.
It's comfortable in a cheap city, yeah.
When did you think that Henry was going to be successful at that point? When did you?
Dude, I knew Henry was going to be successful when he got in a car after a breakup, threw all of his stuff in the back, and you got a phone call at Improv, and it was Henry going, I just broke up, or Shayla and I just broke up, and I'm on my way to LA. And I went, you know what? At this point, I definitely bet money on Henry being a successful entrepreneur because he burned the boats. Like when he was in Las Vegas, making good money, chilling, going to parties for free, seeing sick concerts for free. Yeah, why? There's no fuel there. But for some reason, there was enough fuel to get in that car and call you and say, I'm on my way. And that was when I was like, yeah, he's definitely going to be successful now because he burned the boats.
So I remember it was a few months earlier. I was in Safeway talking to you, and you were contemplating quitting XS, which was the job that you're describing, and going full time on this business that you'd been. If you looked at your tax returns, your revenues and your expenses were the same, so you made no money.
Yes, I was break even for
you were
months.
break even for months, working part time.
Excess or
No, at
Entrepreneurship.
FBA and that kind of stuff.
Living a comfortable life,
and
making good money in his job.
He had the foundational
even on his
stuff
business.
in place, but like wasn't giving it the attention because he had this full-time job and was super tired.
Yeah.
And he was, do I feel comfortable? And was when he left that job and went full-time on it. I was like, okay, now is his best shot. And I'm not saying that everybody listening should quit your job necessarily.
But if you're really handsome, you might want to quit your job and go work at a club in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
It's a good way to make some cash.
Straight up cash. Yeah, just so the audience knows, I am not a smart guy. I think I'm persistent, and I got in a good environment. I didn't really do too well in school, and I think it was a matter of persistence and the people around me.
Mm-hmm. Anything else that you see in your calls, Benji, with people?
So it's very different with people than with Henry because
his environment was completely different than every other person you're talking to.
Yeah. I also would put a timeline on that. So me and you, I think, differ in this opinion, but I believe everyone can be successful in the right environment given enough time.
Yeah.
And I would analyze...
And we mean successful just financially in this
financially free through a passive income business. Paying their expenses. And I think it's just like the people who I know are going to be financially free or successful in 2 years either already are and just want to do more of that, or you can see a very growth-driven mindset. They depersonalize everything, and they understand, like Henry said, they are going to fail along the way. They are going to make mistakes along the way, and they're incredible opportunities to learn the path, because the path is proven. There's tens of millions of people who've done it, and you just got to get on it and follow those footsteps. And when you fail, it just means you slightly went off the path, go back, go the other way. And the best way to shortcut that is to find someone who does it well and follow them. And the people who I think do the worst immediately, they're entitled. They think they're entitled to financial freedom. They hate their job, and they're a very victim mindset. Like, I can't be doing this anymore. I had one guy jump on a call and he's like, I'm trusting in you. I really need this. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? This is not for me. I'm trusting. And anyone who's like, I'm down. Like, I got on a call the other day and I took this guy on for mentorship, and I wasn't even offering mentorship. And he was just like, dude, I'll do anything. I understand. He showed me his product ideas, and they're very premium, nice looking products. His, I believe, Romanian, not 100% on that, and speaks like 5 languages, and he's just like, I'm bussing tables at a coffee shop, and I work 8 hours a day, then I come home and I work 8 hours on my business. And you can just tell it's just a matter of time, because he has that growth mindset, and he's willing to put in the work and learn.
Got it. Well, I agree that the number one thing is persistence, because to Henry's point, I've seen guys that they weren't straight A students by any means, but they just stick with it and they end up being successful. And we even have our most successful friend, in my opinion, who now runs like a huge bone broth company and a big keto company. But his first business, he wanted to do coconut vodka. And he took so long sourcing the perfect recipe and the perfect vodka. And I was in a club in Vegas one day, and his company was going to be called Kovo. And all of a sudden I say, hey, dude, I got some bad news. I just bought a Voco. It's exactly your product, but it already exists, and you're 6 months from production. And he spent a year or so on it and just shut it down immediately, which is total failure in quotes, right? So yeah, we had a failure. Everyone I know that's successful had a failure. And so I think if you're going to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to be able to just take that on the chin and go, all right, so that was a complete waste of time. Voco exists. They ate my lunch. What's next?
I have a question, and this I don't know if we're going to get anywhere, because you and I always disagree on this. You mentioned it. You think anyone, given the right environment and time, will break through, make enough money to cover financial freedom? I don't have that view. My view is that, well, go ahead. You wanted to hop in?
I'm confused how we can't get on the same page.
So what is your view? Share your view.
My view is that if you just zoom out and you see what happens, a small percentage of people actually do it. And I think that's to say that 5% of people do it, maybe with shifts 10% of people could, or maybe 20% of people could, but the other 80 might be better served to recognize. And I'm not saying that everyone can't try and be like, oh, who knows if I'm in that 5%. But
what do you think the recipe is to be in that 5%?
It's not just persistence, because there's survivor bias around our friends. Right, you know what I mean? Like, we haven't talked about our other people who we didn't like them for other reasons, but some of them have contacted you recently.
Oh, dude, there's
persisting.
He supports himself as an entrepreneur. I just don't like him.
Okay, so even at that point, he already was supporting himself. I'm saying that you haven't met this. There's a lot of survivor bias in our persistence friends who have made it, and I think that oftentimes, not out of any sort of malice, it's easy to forget about all the people who do not have your brain power. Do not just don't have the raw IQ behind it.
Oh,
and the problem-solving skills.
I'm not saying that everyone can be a successful entrepreneur.
Well, Benji and I often.
I'm saying if you show me someone who lacks mental toughness and persistence and has 160 IQ, and you show me someone else who's very persistent and has 100 IQ, that's the average, right? 100.
Sure.
I'm gonna bet on the. I'm gonna.
Wow.
What?
Imagine that.
I'm gonna bet on the 100 IQ guy, and I think the 160 IQ guy is gonna end up being a really good employee.
Mm-hmm. I think that may be true. That's possible.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying everyone can be successful. I'm just saying I think that the thing I look around and see is the ability to fail and then get up and try again.
Sure. If that 160 IQ guy is made of glass, because the other thing that's IQ is highly correlated with income. It's insane.
Sure, with income.
Yeah.
Well, most people are employees.
Okay, you're saying employee.
Most people are employees.
Yeah,
you go be a CEO of a company, you make millions of dollars.
Sure.
You just didn't start it.
My thought is when you say can be successful, so take Mr. 160 IQ, he doesn't have persistence. Persistence is a learnable thing. Persistence was learned by the people who have persistence because they've learned from people around them that's worked well in the past. Mm-hmm. He can be successful by just learning persistence, but he needs a goal and a pull or a push if he's in pain strong enough to shift his identity to be someone who is now persistent.
Yeah. Well, I think persistence comes from having a big enough why.
Yes.
I think it just comes from having a huge burning desire.
I agree. But Charlie, you say that he could not be successful.
No, I think you're saying there's different things that hold people back, right?
Well, without focusing on persistence as much, I'm saying the word "could" is kind of a strange word.
That's the disagreement.
It boils down to this word, which is, well, if they could, then why don't they? They don't want to be financially free. They don't. Why is it that in any given course, a great success rate for financial freedom would be 5% of the attendees? Now, these are people who put their money, showed up, go to events. There's courses that, I don't mean to, this isn't to badmouth them at all, but there was one that Dane Maxwell ran called, what was it? It was a software as a service. They helped you. The foundation.
Foundation, yeah.
And it not only, it was accountability throughout. It was over the period of months. It was accountability, over and over and over again. Yeah. Not just like, hey, here's the information, but a community to support. And 5% of people maybe make a successful, sustainable business.
I think what I'm saying is anyone listening to this podcast, if they understand they first have to find the right environment, mm-hmm. then they're going to be much more likely to be successful.
100%, 100,000%. I would say that's one of the biggest things that you should do.
Yes, and where we disagree,
that raises your success rate from 5% to 10%,
or even 1 to 5. Who knows?
Or 1% to 10%. Yeah, but you're still at 10%.
Yeah.
For your first business.
Sure.
Like for these Y Combinator businesses, these other 90% of people don't go back and work at a supermarket.
I bet some do though.
Maybe.
So let's move to a different topic. But I and if you want to respond to this, I'll give you a chance. But I think the big difference is you're a smart guy, and for you, everything is always just come, man. You win. You're like good at this. You're good at that. You're just like, oh, when I try, stuff works. And I think it is hard for you to imagine the reality of someone without your horsepower, and what it is like. Because for you, you're like, oh, I didn't succeed. As I reflect, I didn't really try that hard, and I didn't have the right mentors. And then you get it in place, and then you win.
Yes.
And I do think that it is not at all malicious, but like an inability. And even when you look in your friends and family, they're all above average. It's difficult to imagine what it is like to be below average, because I think you don't encounter it so frequently. Neither do I. I just read about it sometimes.
I agree with what you said.
Should we transition into Blackpill?
Yeah, let's do it. Did you have some stuff? Or is that what Justin had, or is that what?
No, I'm saying that's what this reminds me of, which we've never talked about.
What is Blackpill?
Yeah, Charlie, what is Blackpill?
Well, I thought that this was Justin's topic.
Oh, is it? I don't know. Justin, what do you got?
Was this the Blackpill, or is that me? Am I supposed to say this?
I don't know. It's 2:30. Justin, let's kick it to you, Justin.
So we're cutting back. We had Justin read this. We realized we gave.
He doesn't have a microphone. That's our bad, Justin.
So this is Justin's research and contribution. So he brought up an article about the manosphere that was written by a female journalist, and I won't read it all, but it says that this group of people are. The Texas Department of Public Safety released a report saying that these people are an emerging domestic terrorism threat, as current adherents demonstrate marked acts or threats of violence in furtherance of their social grievance, which is to say that these manosphere people have grievances and they are dangerous. And
specifically they said incels, right?
Well, then it breaks them down. So you've got what they call MRAs, men rights activists, who they define as people who claim that family law and social institutions are discriminatory against men. Then they have Mgatau, men going their own ways.
You're a big proponent.
I'm going my own way. Take this feeling of grievance further, arguing that society can't be amended. I don't know that's where this isn't me. And they often avoid women, blaming them for their problems. PUAs, pickup artists, who date and harass women. They date and harass them.
Okay. I thought we were going
Same time, or
I thought we were working on a scale.
No, this isn't.
I was like, it's kind of made sense. It's like men's rights, and then a little bit more extreme is Amgatau. Also over here, not related is pickup artists.
Yeah.
And then people who date
Also,
women.
are pickup artists?
Sorry, is that just...
Wait, is this arguing that pickup artists
Date them?
become terrorists?
And harass.
go ahead. I want to hear the last.
And then there's the incels, who are people who sometimes take the black pill, which is a belief that women, according to this article at least, that women use their sexual power to dominate men socially. Now, I've read a little bit about the black pill, and I would say that some of these characterizations, in fact, probably all of them.
A lot of these seem like mischaracterizations.
Well, I think the people in the group would say they don't feel. What's your question?
Who is the black pill? What is their stance? Like,
So
what is black
my limited understanding, having watched a YouTube video or two, is that there is a couple of pills out there. There's the Morpheus
I know with the
guy,
other pills.
right? Red pill, except that intersexual dynamics are not what you thought they were. That there's hypergamy and women choose to date men of higher status, and that they divide the world into alpha and beta males, etc. Blue pill, love is real, romance, all that kind of stuff. You found the one. And then black pill is people dun. And this is this is one or two YouTube videos. Face, race, and height are the things that women want. Is one of the big things. So part of the black pill is to say that
face?
They want faces.
They want a face.
They want faces.
face is better than no face.
Got it.
Crushing news
And
for
then they
the
wanna
people
race
born
you.
without faces.
Yes. So the idea that sort of underpins this is
Which is
that
actually remarkable. Can I cut in? So what the black pill people are saying, face, race, and height matters more than fame or wealth.
what they're saying is there's no hope. There's nothing you can
No matter
do.
how famous and how wealthy they get.
There's no hope.
Are they saying they can't get wealthy?
Well, it's not. It's
That's a
not
good
face.
point.
It's not
Yeah.
face. Sorry, I'm gonna get this wrong. Face, race, height, fame, wealth, or whatever. Which the red pill says it's mostly fame and wealth, right?
Well, without totally understanding any of it, and with understanding that some of the people who subscribe to these might say, no, not me. The difference of the red pill is they're saying, hey, I don't necessarily like the things that we are, but this is the case, and I can adapt to it in order to get married if I want, or be a pickup artist
now that
if
I
I
understand
want.
the rules of the game, I can play
I
the
can
game.
play it, but I haven't understood the rules. Okay. And then Black Pill says the game is completely rigged. I was born into a body as a person that is incapable of finding love. And a Black Pill, for instance, person with regard to entrepreneurship
I was
might
about
say,
to say that. You're Black
"That's
Pill
me.
business."
I'm not Black Pill.
Business.
Because I'm not actually Black Pill business. Because what I'm saying is anyone could be it, and we won't know who. These Black Pills say, no, it's me. I can't. There's nothing I can do.
I feel like, I mean, certainly these are the extremes, but I feel like there are clear cases where this isn't true, where people of any race and any height are.
I'm sure
doing
they have
incredibly well.
I'm sure they have.
But are they
their
putting it down to the
responses.
individual, or are they putting it down to their entire face, race, height cross section?
I don't know.
I don't know. And
Justin, do you know? Do you know the answer to any of these questions? We didn't really research this well.
about the Black Pill? Yeah. So you'd have to.
I have a question about
Dig
this that's
deeper.
interesting. They're saying that incels are a new terrorist group.
Yeah. So this is where the article goes.
What percentage of incels have committed terrorist acts, and how does that compare to the percentage of Christians,
Yeah.
Jews, anything? Like,
What is an incel?
I'd be surprised.
Involuntary celibate.
They want to make love to a woman.
Say it
but
together.
Jinx.
Say it proud.
Women will not make love to them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
versus a vol cell, a V cell.
I don't think those exist.
No, there are V cells.
They're monks.
There are V cells. That's someone who could get laid but moves to Tibet.
So let me wrap Justin's point, and then we can discuss. So they've applied this thing. It's a tool from Google called Perspective that looks to produce a toxicity score based on the writings of these different groups. And they say that it's getting more toxic as the groups shift from Ungetals, which are going their own way, kind of has like, hey, I'm going to do my own thing, I'm opting out, to incels, which is, according to this, more bitter, upset, and potentially violent.
Ungetals are V cells. That's what you're saying.
I think they're V cells. Discuss, Henry. I see that you have something to say.
The toxicity is funny.
Yeah.
Like what's at toxicity level 10?
Toxicity level.
And what happens at toxicity level 10?
I don't know. So I think that they are looking for words probably like kill, gun, hate.
Oh.
You know what I mean? And so the presupposition is that toxicity level 10 is they're going to shoot someone. They're like, tomorrow they're going to go to their school, their synagogue, and shoot somebody, which is a pretty interesting, not that anyone would be convicted of this, but Minority Report situation where they can potentially predict based on your online activity if you're going to commit a crime of some sort.
Makes sense. How big was this article?
I don't know. Justin
Not
could.
big.
Yeah.
I
Nice.
just thought it was interesting because of the author.
Because of the author.
Yeah.
Because she was a female, or because
Because
who?
she was a woman.
Interesting.
I don't know. I've just never heard it described.
The Manosphere. Manosphere?
Manosphere.
Manosphere. It's big, baby. There's dozens of us.
Who run the world?
What does that mean, big?
All right, let's go to Neuralink. Unless you guys have anything else.
I would
on
just
that.
love to know the stats. I wish they had the stats of actual, like,
This seems like a giggly topic to me.
It is a giggly topic in the end, and I think it's partially because Ben's point of like, you got to establish first that incels are actually more dangerous, rather than being like, hey, here's 2 shootings done by people who identify as incels.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like,
How many terrorist attacks are there, domestic terrorist attacks, and if you categorize them in a variety of ways, does incel come out on top? I'm not saying it wouldn't. I would be surprised.
Well, let's forget that for a second, but let's give the devil his due. Henry and I both watched many years ago, and it stuck with us.
That's the one I can think of. Yeah.
Elliot Rogers, right? The guy who killed his roommates, who had that huge diatribe,
Don't
talked
get
about
me
being the
started.
superior man, and talked about how at like 20 years old, women had not chosen to give him the love that he deserves.
I remember his whole speech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You're good at that.
Yeah.
Remembering this.
here's, I guess,
Do his laugh.
that's the laugh. It's totally produced. So the question is, he says that the reason that he killed those people was because he was an incel.
Yes.
Is that the reason that he killed?
No,
you know who,
and because he
you
had
know who
mental health issues.
Well, you know who he wound up killing?
Yeah, his roommates.
His roommates.
His male
He didn't
roommates.
actually go out and kill any of the men who were taking women. His roommates were like just nerdy kids that he stabbed, and not, he didn't actually, I don't think,
No, he
wind
didn't
up
kill
killing any
He
women.
didn't kill any women.
Were they V cells?
This, I don't know if his roommates were cells of any kind, but it's interesting that because Elliot Rogers says, "Oh, my motivation is being an incel," I don't actually take that at face value to be the case.
No, I would guess it was his mental health issues.
or the fact that one of the things that I've seen, it was that ContraPoints person being like, he talks about how nobody loves him. He's like, not ugly. He's totally fine. It's like, dude, if you showed up, asked a handful of people on a date, smiled a bit more, didn't laugh like,
Oh, yeah, he
Like
did.
a
But he might have
cackling-
his brain could be all sorts of different things. I
Sure,
have no idea
sure.
if he was on the spectrum. I have no idea if he was a sociopath. Like,
Well, the point is that he videotaped himself saying these were the reasons that I need to kill people.
Yeah.
And then he didn't do that.
and
well, he did kill people.
he
No, no, he
killed-
did
Not
kill
the
the
people
people
he
that
said.
he had
He said he was going to
grievances
go
with.
kill the women that denied his love.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And then he killed his roommates instead.
Yeah. So
So why
it
do
seems
you-
like his frustration might be misarticulated in some way, which is to say, like, I'm 20 years old and I haven't had sex. Like,
Well, he's just
welcome to
also
the
not
club.
the same. My point is,
Yeah.
my point
Like,
is
me
he's just
neither,
not
dude.
the same as someone who's got average mental health but hasn't had sex yet because he's 20 and it hasn't happened. Like, those people far out. I think that it's not the only contributing factor or the biggest contributing factor.
Do you think, and this goes back to our earlier conversation, that the despair, and I know you don't know him, but of thinking black pill, it's over. The first 20 years are indicative of my love life for the rest of my life is a major contributing factor, or the fact that he
To terrorist
discovered
attacks?
that?
No, I think it could contribute to suicide. I think despair could contribute to killing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as soon as you turn it into killing other people, something else is going on.
Okay.
Right?
That's
do you
an
do you
interesting
disagree
take.
with his views?
That what?
This guy who killed his roommates?
Probably.
No, I'm saying.
Sorry, do you disagree with his views? Is that your question?
Yeah. Oh boy. His,
What were you gonna say?
His victimhood.
His victimhood. So it's been a while since I've watched him.
Yeah. Let's be careful here because no one knows what his manifesto actually says. But I think we can just say we all probably disagree with him.
My only guess when I look at someone who is so deeply sad at age 20, someone who, despite having what a lot of people would consider advantages, is struggling, is to go, tell me about your dad and tell me about your mom. Like, what happened that is actually causing this? So it seems to me that incel is maybe the last thing someone screams when they do a shooting, but is not actually what's causing the problem. That's only
Didn't this happen with ISIS too? Didn't someone shout that they were in ISIS?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
had no affiliation to ISIS at all. They just turned on a camera. Didn't someone say PewDiePie? They turned on a camera and
Yes.
said, "This is for PewDiePie."
No,
PewDiePie
he said
went,
I think he said subscribe to PewDiePie on the
no,
live
and
stream.
PewDiePie was like, "Okay,
Jesus.
like
What
this has nothing to do with me or what I'm doing." Like
Jesus.
what people shout before they commit a horrible
Or even what they write down.
thing does
Don't
not-
trust what they write down. I really think, and
Yeah,
this is,
PewDiePie's not why that guy did that shooting.
yeah. So it is harrowing and fascinating to watch him, though. It's to give you at least a look at some kid 20 years old talking with such certainty about how he was denied what he deserved and the love that was his is just like I think that those might be words parroted from these incel forums, but it's not where like the reason that he attached to them comes from somewhere else.
Well, to your point, this deserved concept is generally an interesting thing. We know someone who she went in and asked for a raise, and they said, "Why should I give you?" Like, sure, why justify it? Well, I feel like I deserve it. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, do you want to tell me what you've contributed to the company? Well, I know my worth. The guy was just like, "Get out."
Can you share it?
Get out. Like, this isn't how you get.
we had this conversation the other day with somebody.
No, and I think this I think actually everyone would be so much better off if they released the concept that they deserve anything except for maybe some basic human things. But in terms of money, dating, this, that, it's not that you deserve it. It's that you go and you become somebody where it goes well for you. Where you go in and say, "Hey, I think I should get a raise." They go, "Why?" You go, "I generated $1 million for the company last year and I make 50 grand and I will leave and I'll take the clients with me." You can have 200 grand, sir, man. Like, you're on the board. Yeah. And I think that anytime you think you deserve anything, love, money, this, that, it's to your detriment.
Well, I would add some nuance and subtlety, which I think you'll agree with. You can deserve it broadly in the sense that you're a human being, you deserve to be
That's
loved.
what I'm saying, except for basic human stuff.
But you do not deserve any one in particular's love. You do, like, you might feel that as a person, like, look, I deserve to be happy.
Well,
I deserve
worthy
to
of,
have an
maybe.
income. Yeah. And we're perhaps worthy of, like, with time and effort, I could get these things. And I know that you mean that. I just want to clarify for people like, oh, you're right. I don't deserve happiness. Like, I don't deserve to feel good. Like, you do deserve to feel good. You do deserve all of those things, but it's not to say that your boss owes you a raise.
It should tie to what your actions are. Like to say I deserve happiness. It's like, I agree. Do you meditate? Mm-hmm. Are you taking courses on how to make new friends? Like, I can show you studies on what makes people happy. It's loved ones. It's being, going out into the outdoors. Are you doing these things? Because those actions are the actions of someone who deserves happiness and will become happy, unless you have a brain chemical imbalance, in which case then you go see a pharmacologist.
Back to the original point, is it possible for them to put those inputs in? Are they in the right environment to have access to those?
Sure. Oh, sorry. Let me rephrase this. I think that to the extent anyone listening to this can release that concept of deserving it for no reason, they will be better off. Yeah. This is not a this is much more like a prescription than philosophical take on the nature of humanity and what the word deserve means. I'm just saying, if you find yourself asking for a raise because you deserve it, but you can't back it up with what you've produced, or you think you deserve the love of women that you aren't getting, but you aren't asking who does get the love of the women that I like and what are they doing? Is it because they are more interesting or they're better conversationalists or whatever? Just for your own life, you're better off, instead of being upset about it, going and creating the tangible results of the people that are getting the results you want.
That's my point on the business. That's exactly my point on the business.
Yeah, but no one deserves a successful business just because they want one. Right? They would deserve it because they put enough work in and found a market that they could serve and were creating something of more value than the money they took in.
Yes.
Then sure, that's the kind of person. Like, why does Jeff Bezos deserve $100 billion? It's because he created an e-commerce site that billions of people like.
Yeah, trillion dollar.
You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly.
So yeah, deserve is a funny word because it's more descriptive than it is like a a card that you can give in order to receive what you want just because you want
reality is the best teacher.
Of what you deserve.
Whatever you have is what you technically deserve based on your actions.
And you can change your actions.
Yes.
And then you will get more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I just have to add this because I'm thinking of someone who just had something horrible happen and they go, oh, wow, I deserve to be raped. I deserve to be this. I deserve to be, something, fill in the terrible blank.
Well, I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying no one deserves. You didn't deserve that. That's on brand with what I'm saying. You didn't deserve to be raped.
I do feel safe with Charlie sweeping up behind us.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find
I'm saying you should never say I
we got
deserve.
safety.
Yeah. When the bad things happen, you didn't deserve them either.
Cool. Elon Musk's Neuralink. You guys heard of this a while back, right?
Have not. Go.
Really?
You haven't heard of this?
Oh, it's cool.
The biggest problem that Elon Musk has identified was he said, look around this room. How many bits of information are you taking in? It's incredible. You know what I mean? Like, here's a panoramic view with sound, touch, and I have to focus on any particular. Okay. Now, type a text message. I want to say one sentence, and it takes me 15 seconds to do so. So there's an issue with what our brains are capable of taking as an input and what we're capable of outputting. Like, I have this idea fully formulated in my head, but it takes me time to get it to you. So his thought is, okay, AI is coming. It's going to own the world. It's the biggest threat to humanity that he believes. We need a fighting chance. So we got to get that input-output a little bit more balanced, at least at the speed of thought. So if you think of like humans think this fast, but we can only speak this fast, and AI's up here, at least let's get our communication to the speed of thought. So he gets up with this Neuralink idea, which is I'm going to implant this thing into your head, which is basically an internal computer inserted through the jugular with this tiny little wire, apparently, now that they're doing
Matrix.
it, which is the sign
Sounds
of,
terrifying.
according to Justin's research, is the width of a piece of hair to wirelessly, I mean, dude, this guy's insane. This was a side project like a year and a half ago. They're developed threads 10 times thinner than human hair, which can be implanted inside the brain to wirelessly monitor neuron activity. A surgical robot, also made by Neuralink, is put in charge of implanting the microscopic threads into brain matter. And it can reestablish connections where neural cabling has died, let people with brain injuries recover from physical capabilities that have been lost as a result of stroke, for example. And I think it's very much still in the figuring it out phase, but like,
I'm in if you're in, boys.
this dude's insane. Would you do it?
It gives me anxiety
Would
to
you
think about.
I'm not gonna be one of the
Not
first.
before it's tested.
Yeah.
Not before it's tested.
What's crazy
And
is,
even-
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that just that as technology advances and you're stuck with old technology.
Yeah, you got the iPhone 1 in your brain.
Yeah, exactly. iPhone 3 with the slide to unlock.
Oh, beyond that, dude, say you stay analog human. You don't go fully this. You think you can compete now? I think one of those inputs to business success, as soon as this stuff comes out,
download your
becomes
course.
having a Neuralink. If you don't have Neuralink, you're
For
done.
finances, I agree, but if your goal is
For anything.
fulfillment and happiness, I would take a
What if I
second.
You might be
Downloaded
right.
fulfillment.
You might be right.
You got to
if I-
define your goal. Download
So I don't
fulfillment. I'm in.
download.
Download fulfillment, please. Well,
Open zip file.
Well, let's presume that you're right. What you could have is like two tiers of humans. One who is this approaching God level, like is capable of communicating at the speed of thought, recovering movement with limbs, etc.
You become cells in a giant organism.
Yeah, and that's one tier of humans that are doing everything that's worth noting, and then you have this other tier who like chops wood and like
No, man, I'll go one
children.
further. The greatest minds in the Zen community will meditate for weeks so they
That's
can
what
get
I'm saying,
10
dude.
minutes of mental stillness.
Yeah.
Bro, I just got an off switch in my Neuralink. You want me to have no thoughts? Boop. I'm literally incapable of having thoughts right now.
Yeah.
I've hit Zen.
Because weirdly enough, to your point, and I know it's going to be rudimentary, everything that people do is an attempt to change what happens here. And of
Yeah.
course, it's a cycle, right? What happens here is causing us to do, and it's all deterministic. Forget that. But what you're saying is like, I'm gonna do 20 years of meditation now.
The goal of the meditation is to learn to turn my brain off, right?
Yeah.
Well, my brain has an off switch now. It's just run by robots.
It might
So
be hyper simplified.
I
I
go-
see what you're saying.
Yeah, I'll take just the part of my brain that operates without thought, keeps my heart beating, but all the thought stuff, turn off for an hour. And I'll have more Zen than any meditation person has ever had.
Yeah. Any thoughts before we do questions?
Now, I saw something cool, though, for those of our listeners who are
I got a
paralyzed,
question.
where
Henry has a question.
people are using stem cells to repair nerves that are broken between their brain and their spine.
That's cool.
and they can walk again.
That's super
after
cool.
being paralyzed. Pretty wild. That's what
Great.
this reminds me of.
Just I don't want to get stuck on this. It is sad that we have not a lot of research into stem cells in the United States as compared to other countries, but I'm glad
allowed.
somebody's doing it.
Not allowed.
You're not allowed to take like placenta stem cells or something like that. It's yeah.
I saw a bottle on your desk downstairs.
It's weird.
Those
I
were
did see that too.
Illegally
Super
harvested.
weird.
Illegally harvested.
Illegally harvested. What are those placentas on your desk?
How'd you get those?
How did you get those?
Just fish
It's
tank
LA,
full
man.
of them.
It's
Fine. So LA.
Yeah.
Everyone, to be clear, anyone who doesn't live in LA, everyone in LA has just vats of illegal stem cells sitting around their apartments
Yep.
for whatever. Rub it on your face for moisturizer.
That
eat
blood
it.
mask that they used to put on.
Dude,
your
those are
face.
scary. Vampire facials.
Yeah.
They freak me out.
Good
Those are
luck,
real.
dude.
They take PRP, like how you'd fix a knee. You pull out your blood, spin it around so you get extra platelet-rich blood, and then inject it back into your knee. They do it for facials, and they just cut your face a bunch of times with little cuts.
Wow.
This is what they
And then
did for a UFC fighter, right?
No, the Kardashians do it. The vampire facial.
Yeah, but not for his face. He he spun his blood. The little guy.
Oh, the PRP. Yeah, it's how Kobe fixed his knee. He went to
that's
Germany
what
because
TJ
it was
Dillashaw-
illegal.
Yeah,
TJ
yeah.
Dillashaw. Yeah.
Oh, that's different. That's blood doping. That's not for placenta, or that's not for platelets.
We
That's
took it out,
for-
spun it, and put in
Day
plasma.
of flight.
Plasma.
A day of fight, so he could just
Yeah,
be.
yeah. That's to get more red blood cells per liter of blood.
Yep.
So you have more stuff carrying oxygen. That's
Actually,
what
that-
Lance Armstrong was doing. Right?
And then yeah. So let's do. You had a question, or do you want to go to fan questions?
How did Moon get there? Go ahead, answer.
Wait, can I ask? I have a curiosity
Yeah.
that I'd like to ask both you boys and Hank.
Mostly Charlie and Hank, though, right?
Mostly Hank.
Cool.
Just pull this a little closer.
I'm waiting.
So,
Question.
so I feel like as this technology, this Neuralink thing evolves, for myself, I'm like, I want to get very clear on what my goal is, because there may be a more efficient way to get there, or it may be counterintuitive, and I just want to be able to measure the metrics towards my goal. My question to you, though, is my goal is based on very arbitrary things at the moment. You know, it's based around my current thoughts and
Understanding
mindset
of the
and
world, yeah.
values. So I'm how do you factor in technological growth, and how do you factor in like variables that you don't understand that may just, like, if my goal is fulfillment, but if I change something I don't care about fulfillment, I can fulfill that second goal very clearly. How does how do you factor that in?
Yeah, well, this is a real problem for people, right? Because they'll have a goal to be fulfilled or to be happy, but they'll pursue something like a lot of money or a lot of fame, whatever it is, and they truly think they're going in the right direction. They get there and they go, oh my God, I have sprinted for 10 years in the wrong direction, and I achieved my goal, but it didn't achieve my real goal, which was to love myself, be happy, have connection.
Have you
whatever
ever
it
had
is,
that
right?
happen in your life? Charlie?
Yeah. I mean, my desperate desire for a life partner at what point led me to go deep into a relationship with kind of blinders on, where there'd be evidence. No, this is a great life partnership. I wish it went as well as me and Charlie. No, this was an ex, and I just wanted it so badly that when red flags would come up, I go, nah, definitely not, because this is the most important. At one point, pre-psychedelics, the most important thing in the world to me was a female life partner to grow old with, right? And I thought, without that, absolutely no way to be happy. And maybe that's true, maybe it's not, but that belief led me to sprint towards deep relationships and ignore a lot of signs that, hey, maybe you guys should break up, you should try again, even if your goal is to have this life partner, maybe not with this person. Yeah, so that definitely screwed me up. What about you?
What was the question?
I don't remember.
Where have you gone wrong here? Fame, I think, for you, right?
Yeah, instead of talking the abstract, it's like sometimes I'm more
Well,
interested.
you used to want to know. You used to want to
What is the
be
question?
famous.
What is the question? What did I pursue that wasn't worth it?
You had a life, you had a world view. To Benji's point,
goal.
your ultimate goal is to be happy and fulfilled, and maybe to seek truth. But you had a world view that you said, "Oh, to get to there, I'm gonna do blank," right? And then you pursued it, and you went, "Oh, this was a mistake."
Yeah, well, so as I do more psychedelics and spiritual stuff, I do see it all as like, we've talked about this, and this relationship is like, that's a path you had to take in order to get back on the right path.
No, I think Henry's just saying, can people learn from our journey?
If someone else
What's
could
your-
learn from me, yes. Okay, so I had to learn this.
You had to learn it yourself,
by
but now
doing it
you
the hard
can
way.
teach it to other people.
Someone else
so
can
you can change,
listen.
You can
Yeah.
change their
Got it,
worldview.
got it.
You can change their worldview. So
You
they
guys
don't-
know this, yeah. Fame for sure
Yeah.
is the dumbest thing, and it wasn't even a major pursuit of mine. It was like a secondary pursuit.
Well, it
And
was views, right? It was a
No. You.
I wanted
as
a blue
kid,
tick. I wanted a blue tick.
You
I
used
wanted
to imagine playing music in Madison Square Garden and things of that
Yeah,
nature.
and playing music is wonderful, but playing music in Madison Square Garden becomes a problem.
Yes.
Like, I think my fantasy wasn't to feel music flowing through me and expressing myself on the guitar. It was to be on a stage at Madison Square Garden receiving adulation.
Charlie, that's my name.
It's not even playing.
That's my name.
And it's it's slightly that now. There's still ways in which that occurs, but yeah, I've been largely disabused of the belief that Tim Ferriss just wrote an article which summarizes it even better than I can, because I haven't lived the worst things. But he talks about stalking. He talks about
Death threats.
He talks about cries for help that you can't possibly satisfy from people who are on the brink of suicide.
Yeah, attempted kidnappings.
Not knowing why people are in your life, having all of these quasi connections reach out all of a sudden, and you find out a month after you've started to build a connection that they just wanted to butter you up for an ask of theirs. And the upsides of fame are zero. And my level of fame, it's zero. It's totally zero.
So my lesson was to pursue someone else completing you is hollow. Yours is to pursue fame is hollow. What do you guys got?
Fame is awesome. I'll be honest, dude.
Dude,
Being Charlie's brother.
on people, me and you.
Yeah.
I'm not famous, by the way. That's the other thing, is I only have a F.
Well, that's the problem.
You have an
with-
ecosystem of
The
fame.
problem with fame is you are famous, but there is no level of famous where you qualify as famous. It's such a fickle thing that there's
People
nothing
stop
to
you in the
stand-
street.
There's nothing to stand on.
To someone who has never done anything public.
There's
That's
not a
a- that's a
line, but
modicum.
Justin Bieber's famous.
Yeah,
and
you're
my
F
mom
level.
is not.
You're F
So
level.
there's somewhere in between where like somebody
Not when she
becomes-
walks into her school.
She's very famous.
Yeah.
Everyone knows her. That's the power of community.
She's Charlie Hooper's mom.
Yeah, she actually called me. She told me that one of her kids saw a picture of me in her office and got really excited.
Yeah. My sister used to have that. My sister
That's the
used to do-
coolest part of fame,
Yeah,
honestly,
yeah.
is my mom being proud of me. Like,
Yeah.
that's like what? That's literally the only part that is.
There's no easier way to get there.
And I think I should clarify, because people listening might think, oh, you don't care about like helping people and fame aren't the same thing. Not even close. Connecting.
having a massive reach to help a lot of people is great.
Yes.
That
Fulfilling
coming back on you in some sort of way that's supposed to
Yes.
benefit you because people recognize you. That's where it's like,
If I were faceless, I could enjoy helping people just as much.
Yeah.
But I would have no fame.
Yeah.
And like the help is the part that is fulfilling. But anyway, you
Tell me why.
Go ahead. So sorry.
do we have fan questions this week?
Charlie, so
Uh-huh.
you're saying the significance of fame is not
Mm-hmm.
sustainable or fulfilling, but the contribution is and the help is?
No, I think-
Why
I
is
think-
one more fulfilling than the other?
The rare chance to get outside of your own wants and needs is amazing, and I'm not there yet, but I see it. Remember when you were a kid and they always told you it's better to give than to receive?
Yeah.
And I was like, that's just a trap to get me to buy people
I haven't gotten
presents.
Nintendo yet,
Because I was
so
like,
you don't
I
know.
definitely like opening presents more than I like packaging them. Let me be clear. Like, what I have started to see as growing up is the moments where you're not concerned with what you have or don't have and are instead concerned genuinely, not like and how it reflects upon you, with the success of someone else and the happiness of someone else, is a very freeing moment from your own egocentric existence. And so in that sense, helping people, the moment where you realize it or do it and you get out of yourself and you're in flow, not worried about what you need, is really nice.
Nice.
Or can be. But it's
So it's literally just the feeling you get.
I also think the process of not worrying about yourself because you are concerned with other things is nice.
That's cool.
And that's why I'm not there, but I hear people who are more enlightened than I talking about service as the ultimate thing. And I think that can easily be conflated with impact, which is what the egocentric person says. I want to make a big impact. That's not service. Like, and sometimes they even...
Well, especially when you ask I want to make a big impact. What's impact to you?
Billion.
A billion views.
A billion.
Sorry. Is that a billion people whose lives are better? Because you said billion views, which doesn't have anything to do with them and is a very you-centric measurement.
So, and again, which every individual needs to look inside themselves and ask, ultimately, what do I hope to get out of my impact/service? But to lose yourself in service is, I think, what people try to do in a way that is ultimately fulfilling. Can I steal this back from you, Justin?
So this is audience question.
Audience
Yay.
questions.
Woo!
Shoot
Did they
at
prepare
square.
anything for me?
This one's to Henry. Recently, I found myself interested in understanding personality types and wanted to ask whether either of you have put any thought into it. Myers-Briggs, for example, has recently come to be seen as a bit of a joke because of how it's been incorrectly used on certain parts of the internet, but I've definitely seen value in understanding dominant functions in myself and those really close to me. I know you're going to have an opinion on this one, Benji. Seeing this has also made me consider potential crossover for charming people and being more charismatic by first identifying their dominant functions and tailoring your interactions to best connect with them. Have either of you ever considered different approaches for different people's preferred ways of thinking or personality types? So it's a big question.
I have a charisma one, which is just a small clarification I want to make. People often confuse introvert with not charming. And I think that's a huge miss, right? So I'm an extrovert, you're an introvert. But someone could take these personality tests and they could discover they're an introvert, which literally just talks about how you're energized, right? And then they could go, oh, I'm an introvert, I'm screwed. I'll always struggle to make friends. I'll always struggle to be attractive. And it's nothing I can fix because it's this permanent personality trait, right? Which I don't even know if I agree with that, because I think introvert, extrovert is a spectrum that can be changed, but let's pretend it's fixed. I still think that that's not what this is saying. It's literally just saying that in the middle of being incredibly charming and making great friends and having everyone, want to date you, you need to go find time to recharge alone. That's all introvert means. So I think these things can be dangerous if people read too much into them. That would be my first thing. Sure, use it if it's advantageous to you to get to know yourself, but to the extent you think a personality test tells you things about yourself that you can't be successful at, that limit you, throw it out. Because I don't think that that's what these are meant to be doing at all.
Sure. You use DISC, right?
Yeah, I love DISC.
You told me I was high D the other
Very high
day.
D.
Huge D.
Big D char.
Huge
That's
D.
what we call it, man. Yeah.
What does the D stand for?
It's like
I don't
decision
know.
or
It's almost
decisive.
decision making. It doesn't really. I don't know if it stands for something specific.
I'll look it up.
So I'll give my brief answer, but unless you have a strong reaction to this, because I know that you often
I
talk like
honestly
this.
thought there were questions for you guys.
Well, you think about this more than I do.
What is the exact word?
Well, there's a lot of questions. Okay, I'll give you my thoughts. One, should you tailor? Is there any sort of structure that I use to tailor my interactions towards people? Occasionally, I use Tony Robbins' stuff. When I'm trying to be persuasive with someone, I'll note if they're a matcher or a mismatcher. So if you're trying to be persuasive and someone just disagrees, you can double bind them, right? You can go, you're right to be
Sneak around
skeptical,
the
or you can recognize those sorts of things. So
That's the best. You're right. You are right to be skeptical. I'm not skeptical. Excellent. Now we may proceed.
Yes.
That one's awesome.
So Tony's stuff is actually, it's not particular to people. It just talks about the 6 human needs common to all people. But I don't, in my interactions, think, oh, this someone is an INFJ, therefore I ought to be different. Maybe I might benefit from it, but it's not how that's at least consciously am thinking. I do on occasion notice that someone is going to be quiet in a group, so I might ask them a question, but that's not something that I change my behavior based on.
I would also say it's very fickle. Like if you're interacting with someone for an afternoon and you're trying to tailor your actions around them, you're not working on yourself.
Yeah.
Like I feel like you're better off to understand what type you are and what you're going to lean towards and what you're going to most likely forget. Like I'm also high D, big D verse.
Dominance. D is dominance.
It is, I think it's like a bird's eye view. I'm very terrible with the details. Like I don't read, I don't proofread. It's all terrible. And I think for me, it's good for me to have learned that and then hire someone who is very high C, which is very detail oriented, and work together. And I'd say in social situations, you probably want to know where are your weaknesses and where are your strengths, and then just know that you're just an archetype. Like there's many people like you, and you're going to make these mistakes. Know them ahead of time.
What do I do if I'm just really high in all of them?
Just an expert.
Just 100% in all of them. What does that mean?
You're very high I for sure.
Ascended.
Influence?
And it's like
Thanks, man.
It's like social, like working in a team, working together.
So the area where I think this is, I think in my social life, I almost completely threw these out. I had the same thought that these were jokes, but where I've been like begrudgingly come around to them is when it comes to hiring.
Yeah.
I don't like these tests at all, except then you're hiring someone, you go, oh my God, I was going to hire myself. like we're the same. I actually need someone who's different and is not, and who I might not immediately click with. So in those sense, the DISC test, for instance, is very useful for trying to find the right person.
When you're making friends, it's oftentimes people like people that are similar to them, but when you're building a team for anything, if you are all the same, then you're all going to have the same weaknesses.
What about a relationship or
That's a good question.
counterpart? You guys are experts.
I'm not. I wonder if there would be any sort of data on types that work and not work well. I hate the word work well.
Like
that make
Capricorns
one
are
another
very good
happy.
Geminis.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Though the one thing that I have heard, which I don't know if this is true, I actually don't know.
Capricorn. That's the LA type that you want
What
to
are
know
you talking about? We're talking about Myers-Briggs.
Gemini.
I'm a Capricorn.
I'm a Leo, baby. Yeah, I don't know if it's true or not, but there are people who purport that the key to having a happy relationship is to be equally distant from the middle of the masculine feminine spectrum, which is to say, if you are, and it has nothing to do with gender, but this is just the traits they make up for masculine and feminine, which is if you're fairly in the middle, you will be happiest with someone who's fairly in the middle, because you're going to feel like someone who's too far to one side is too much of something. And conversely, if you are hard on one side, you're very masculine or very feminine. This theory would purport that someone who's really equally distant on the other side is going to make you happy, which I don't know, because that's not how my dating has been in the past, I feel like. But maybe that's why it hasn't worked out.
Sorry, when you were saying that, the entire time I was just thinking of Ryan Gosling going, you. Or is it Tom Cruise?
You.
Complete.
You complete me. Yeah. No, that's the thing. I have no idea if it's, just to be clear, I have no idea if it's accurate or not. But that's a theory I've heard.
Love languages, I think, are very important.
Also, on the
I've
dating
seen
apps are
good
incredibly important.
personal
My
evidence
love
on
language is gifts.
Gifts and gifts. So
Gifts and love gifts.
I like receiving gifts.
No, the love languages is good. I think the biggest thing is people try to understand their partner's love languages as an attempt to try to give those. And I think the best thing you can do if you're going to use the love languages is figure out, how do I naturally give love? And then find someone who interprets that as receiving love. Does that make sense? So like, I'm very touchy. Rather than finding someone, oh, this person's gifts, I'm going to set a phone reminder every month to get this person a gift. That is so inorganic. The best thing I can do, I think, is go, listen, the way I express love is compliments and touch. So I should find someone who, when they get compliments and touch, feels loved. And then I will effortlessly make that person feel loved. You know what I mean? So that, I like the love languages a lot, but that's how I think you should use them. Whereas before, I was in a mismatch. And I was like, cool, you like quality time? I hate quality time, but I'm going to force myself to do some so you'll be happy. And it's like, well, now I don't want to do this. And she didn't like touch. And I love touch. So, well, okay, push yourself out of your comfort zone to scratch my head a little bit more because it makes me feel loved. It's like, no, this is terrible. You should just find someone that likes to give quality time, and I should find someone who likes to give touch.
Have you met a girl who you're attracted to whose love language is not quality time?
Or what you purport your love languages are?
I don't know, because I've kind of moved away from that model, honestly. I actually feel like it happens unspokenly if you're finding the right person. But yeah, I mean, actually, someone I'm seeing now, her thing is definitely not quality
Is
time.
it?
Yeah, for sure. Because she says she feels smothered when people try to see her too much.
I gotcha.
Is that because you're laying on top of her? Or
Your lat is in my mouth.
She does say that I'm a bit too heavy
your
for
dog
that.
is just licking her ears?
Cool. Next question from Anonymous. Hi, Charlie and Ben. I'm 19 years of age from Ireland. I've been a huge follower of the channel for 3 years.
Himself exactly.
Yeah. We ask him
Anonymous.
to. We ask him to.
Hey, I'm David.
Social security number is...
Sorry, go ahead.
All right, so I've been a huge follower of the channel for 3 years. I'm particularly interested in the topics of self-development, self-worth, self-love, codependent relationships. I've been with a girl who is part of my friend group in college for the past 2 months. We've kissed multiple times, had sex once. First time we kissed was on the night we first met one another at the bar. There may be a chance of a relationship as at the moment we are not strictly exclusive, but not necessarily seeing other people. So don't know, it sounds like. She has said that she ended a 2-year relationship during the summer, which was very difficult for her, and she said to me if she was going to get into a relationship, she didn't want to make the same mistake. I don't know what was the cause of her previous relationship falling apart. So he doesn't know what that mistake was. Okay. I have not been in a relationship before. Here's the issue. I'm quite self-aware and I'm recognizing compulsive and addictive feelings towards her. Good for you.
That is good for you.
I keep these in check. Yeah, good luck. However, I'm aware that if I get into the relationship, I may become codependent based on how I feel about her now. I also understand there's a good chance the relationship won't last forever due to its addictive nature. It may cause me a great deal of pain. My current approach is to continue into the relationship, enjoy the time we spend together, and accept the pain which I may experience at the end.
The Altman.
And perhaps
Call that the
experience
Altman.
growth. What do you think of my approach? Do you think this matters at my age, and should I just play it day by day? Any feedback would be great.
That's the Altman. That's the Altman, baby. Just enjoy it while it lasts and then take the pain. I think the only thing I would say is when I mean, that's just would be natural for me. When someone said, I just got to have a 2-year relationship and I don't want to make the same mistake twice, I would just go, what mistake? So I would say, don't force that. But if it comes up again or she says it, I would definitely figure that out personally, because I just would be curious. But especially if you're considering dating her.
Yeah,
I wouldn't cut ties just because you're afraid that you're going to get hurt. I would definitely not do that.
Yeah, because so I don't know if this is exactly what they were saying, but in the book that I was reading last night, it's got a mantra that is, they say, is a healing mantra, and it's "There's no way out of pain," which is, weirdly enough,
Say it a bunch of times.
there's
Just,
no
like,
way out of
accept.
pain, and you just relax, and you go, "Oh my God!" It's like what you're trying to do is do this right so it doesn't hurt. It's like, guess what? You're 19. You've never been in a relationship. You're gonna hurt.
It will hurt.
It's gonna hurt no matter what you do.
I mean, for the record, it'll also be awesome at times and bad at times.
Well, let's give our bro some practical advice on where he goes from here.
Oh, so take a deep breath, man. Buckle up. And you're totally cool.
That's not practical.
This is.
No, it is.
So I used to think that a 19-year-old could have relationships taught to him verbally. And what I recognize now is that
I know,
you
but
can't.
he wants the. He wants
I'm going to give you the advice.
Stuff.
You've got the right mentality. The best thing that you're doing that not everybody does, and the only thing that you can potentially mess up, is the degree of self-awareness. I don't want to conflate self-awareness with self-criticism, but just to go, oh, wow, I'm becoming super addicted to this, and I recognize it. Like, great, and give her a call. And of course, you're 19. It's your first relationship. This person is going to mean the world to you in about 3 days. Like that is going to happen, and trying to avoid what other young people do, I think, is quite frankly impossible. It's good to be young while you're young. It'd be worse to be doing this when you were 39 years old, So
Why?
Well, one, because you're not hopefully dating a 19-year-old at that point.
Okay. That math checks
Who was
out.
at that same level.
Disagree.
And it's not like you're a bad person at that point, but it would just be nice to have started that journey a little bit earlier, and to have gone through the early stumbles that you're inevitably going to do.
If
So
anonymous Irish man was
19 from Dublin.
David, imagine if his name is David. If he is Charlie Hoopert, like if that is you
Yeah.
back then, and you could deliver one piece of advice.
So I'm obsessed with, I know her name.
I have
say
a
it.
piece of advice.
Say it.
Yeah, good. That's
I'm obsessed with her. I'm totally crazy about her.
She's dated someone else. You guys have hooked up once or twice.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different because in this situation, you've had sex with her, which would be
Not
shocking
me.
for
Yeah.
19-year-old Charlie.
Oh, I see.
I would say at that point in my life, you can get into a relationship, but and this is contrary to what I often say on the podcast, at 19, focus on self-development in the sense that, like, learn the guitar, take a study abroad trip, learn to paint because you didn't know how, take a salsa dancing lesson, like, invest in what is the normal self-development stuff, go to the gym, all that kind of stuff. That's the best thing to be doing 19 to whatever 30, or I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's great advice. The one thing I would say, which is going to be, I think it's hard to implement, but it would be my number one piece of advice, is as important as this seems, I want you to know that in 10 years you will laugh about how important you think it is. And so when you do find yourself incredibly despondent or obsessed or whatever, to the extent you can just take a break and go, I recognize that this is because of where I'm at in life, and that when I'm 29, this is going to be hilarious because it won't have mattered at all. I think that'll be really helpful, because I know some of my unhappiness in college came from thinking that certain relationships really mattered, and then they wouldn't last more than a couple months. And I would go, oh my God, this is the end of the world for me. That was my one shot at marriage. I'm doomed. And if I could have just given myself the mindset of, this is totally fine. You're going to be A-okay. You're going to feel like this or stronger about someone else within a year. That would have served me the best. It's just going, this isn't the end of the world. Take a deep breath. Try to just enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah.
Well, what's weird is that's every stage of life, right? Like I think of it as high school, where you're in high school and it's so important to be liked and popular and get the girlfriend, and whether or not you were picked. And then you go to college and instantly you have this perspective on high school, which is like, what a joke that was.
Yeah.
College is what's important, frats and drinking. And then you leave college, you're like, those stupid frat handshakes that I thought I needed to get into the right one. And it just, at every level you look back and go, what a fool I was, not recognizing that you're currently there. So that's wisdom, is recognizing that where you are today is in high school, still thinking that your stuff is important. So good luck. If you're that wise at 19, you're the man.
Yeah.
Hashtag.
No, and I think that's a powerful thing. That's one of the best things that psychedelics give me sometimes. I go in thinking about a problem. I'm like, yo, I'm going to take this ayahuasca and it's going to fix this problem. And I take the ayahuasca and the immediate recognition is, this is a stupid problem. It doesn't matter. I literally will just lay down and laugh. I'll just burst out laughing because I don't have a solution for the problem.
Yeah.
But it's so inconsequential. Oh, this business thing, this relationship. It's like,
Too much bicep muscle.
relax. You'll be fine.
Well, good luck, Anonymous.
I feel like he's.
Anonymous asked
Yeah, it's
two
incredibly
questions.
self-aware.
Yeah, I like it.
2 questions from Anonymous this week.
Top 5%.
No, you're doing great.
Top fiver.
You're doing great, Anonymous. Like, you're killing it.
You know to avoid a codependent relationship. I was sprinting towards one. I wanted one so bad. You're going to be addicted to me? You'll never be able to leave? And I'll suffer greatly for it?
Perfect.
Sick.
So in a previous episode, Charlie mentioned a tolerance threshold for living frugally or uncomfortably. How do I know what my threshold is? For some reason, I've always thought that there might be some kind of appeal to living on a tight budget. But that being said, I've never really struggled much or had anything go wrong in my life, so I don't know anything about it or much about it. I'd love to discuss with Charlie and Ben about how they determined that they were ready to quit their jobs and start a business. Just to clarify, I'm a first-year university student. I've never worked for a salary. So this guy is wondering, I think, if he can suck it up, bootstrap, live on the floor, etc. And he wants to know what his threshold is. And, well, 2 answers. 1, you won't know until you're there. So I didn't know that I wasn't going to struggle until I was really not that worried about it.
Were you scared about it, though, going into it?
No.
So that's indicative.
Yeah, I really was just, and 2, which I think might be.
I said you have to sleep on the floor. You said sick. I get to live in New York.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It wasn't, how am I going to survive on a 4-inch cot? It just wasn't your makeup.
Yeah, and I also wasn't very, even, I guess, the first, 20 years of my life, I was not into stuff in the same way. Like, I liked video games, but, like, I didn't like nice clothes or nice spaces or I didn't like nice anything. I liked my dirty room. So it was very easy to me to go sleep in a dirty corner.
Yeah. What about you, Benji?
That was hardly a downgrade.
You have an incredible story. Do you want to give the quick highlights of the Brazil setup, or you want me to?
Yeah, I like this question because I think we're all very different.
That's why I kick it. That's why I kick it to you. I don't have a good answer for this.
You do. You have a great one. You offer a really good perspective.
Yeah, crazy different.
And so
Totally different. Yeah, totally different.
All 4 of us are all on different sides of the spectrum, so I don't think there's a concrete recipe.
Sure.
Everyone's different. For me, I was on one side of the spectrum that involved having about 2,000 Australian dollars in my bank account, moving to Brazil, paying about $1,000 for the flight, and then having to buy a bed, which was like another $1,000 or something. I'm like,
they're so expensive in Brazil. For anybody who's going, oh, you got a nice bed. No, you didn't.
No, it was terrible.
No, you didn't. There was no Craigslist, and you had to
Amazon.
Yeah,
Go
no
straight
Amazon.
to
Go straight to a store, pick the crappiest twin-sized bed, and $1,000.
Well, you didn't have to because Benji only had $1,000.
I had
So he did
1,000,
not do that.
and then 500 of rent was due in a month, 30 days. So
we had security deposit.
I went the extreme route of just being like, just put yourself in the environment and you'll adapt to it and you'll grow and you'll find a way, or you won't, and I'll be back in college having a good time. Either way is a win-win, I guess, is an important takeaway. I didn't have anything to lose.
And important to recognize that, which I think isn't true for everyone, but I understand we're on a podcast. Like, we had no kids, an understanding that our family was going to make sure that we did not starve to death or sleep outside.
Yeah, for sure, Net.
Yes.
And with an understanding that there was no outside, there was no starving to death, there was some.
You guys were 19. We were 25.
Yeah.
It's 21.
Oh, you were 21.
Older, yeah.
21.
Yeah.
We were 25.
But that the worst case scenario for you and I, and it was very clear, was like not that bad. It was still food, still shelter, embarrassment, but it wasn't catastrophic in our minds.
It wasn't starve to death or have a child that you can't
that
support.
I couldn't support. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So-
it's important. It's a win-win. Either I'm in
Yeah.
college having a good time, or I'm
But-
in Brazil making a business.
To get by, you slept on a plank of wood
box
instead of
spring.
buying a mattress.
I slept on a box spring because I remember we went to this one bed store and everything was like $1,000, and you guys like, yeah, we'll probably get like just 6 of those, one for everyone. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I'll shop around a little more. Remember taking a bus, I spoke no Portuguese, along like the beach to this really, like, I Google mapped like a cheaper bed store, and the only thing in there for like, it was like still $400 or something crazy, was the box spring.
Yeah.
And it's wood, it's like really solid, and I'm like, okay, box spring, went to the $2 store, bought like a $10 doona, just box spring, laid the doona on top, had a pillow, My mum made me a quilt. That's where I curled up.
That was
for
your bed
month,
for a
and
year,
it's
right?
Like, okay, now how do I pay rent?
Should have just slept on the floor, man.
Yeah, seriously,
like
just
blankets
elevated
and a
the
floor
floor.
was as just as good.
Yeah,
But
very true.
so now same question to you.
Mm.
Did you at some point work on that in a stoic way? Because I think some people read stoic philosophy. It was very popular at one point, and they say, oh, I have to work on practicing poverty. I'm going to sleep on the floor to prove to myself. Or did you just live your life and then you showed up in Brazil and you went, okay, I'll sleep on a box?
Yeah, the second one.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I think for both of you, it just seems like you were comfortable with poverty. You never worked on.
No, there was no effort that went into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing that I'm sort of understanding.
And we got to be fair. This isn't poverty. Like I get, like it was relative poverty for our lives. But
Sure.
it was-
I'll give some context.
We were in a
You had
level 5 apartment
well,
building.
Yeah,
you
we
had
off the ground.
20
Off the
grand
ground.
in the bank, 12 grand. What did you?
14.
You had 14 grand in the bank,
13 or 14.
and
yeah.
you owed $90,000,
probably 90 to 100,000.
$100,000. So you had a net worth of negative $80,000.
Something.
And
like
Benji had, after buying your box spring,
$500.
$500 in the
Yeah,
bank account,
Australian.
and rent was due in a month,
Which is not a good exchange rate.
and it was $500.
And
Right.
no-
so
and
that's
no income.
Those
Yeah.
are the exact.
Absolutely no
I just want. Sure, we won't call it poverty. Those are the exact financial situations we're talking about. $500 in the bank, $500 rent due in 30 days, no job, and no income. Right. And what you did was you started working for Google. Right. You started.
I did, and it's not as sexy as that
Image.
sounds.
No. Yeah, sorry. They would go ahead for Google Image. So we,
Google image result search, and they paid $20 an hour, and basically I just assessed image results to see if they're accurate.
is this a cat?
Is this
Yes or no?
Yes, it is. But then what I did is I borrowed your boys' computers and
Yep.
got 2 more Google jobs. It was another-
$60 an
Yeah,
hour.
it was $60 an
Cat.
hour. Yeah,
Bus,
but-
dog, cat, bus, bus, dog.
Yeah, it's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And hustled it up from there.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, yeah, we don't have to call it poverty or not, but it was $500 with $500 due in a month, and for you it was 14 grand in the bank, and you owed someone $90,000.
But also important is I feel like everybody's so different on that spectrum, and
Yeah.
I used to recommend put yourself in that environment, which is what I did.
Yeah. Mhm.
But then for you, you've obviously done very well for yourself, but you were also quite uncomfortable, even though you had
Oh, yeah.
infinite
most-
times
the
more
most-
Oh, the
money.
most money by far. Can I share one other thing just because I think it's funny? So that 14 grand became zero because our business wasn't successful,
Yeah.
and you liquidated your 401k to pay rent, right?
Yeah, it took out. So this is needlessly complicated, but you put money into a 401k when you have a job, and you plan to take it out at 65, and you won't pay taxes on it, and you can invest in all that stuff. If you take it out before then, you pay like a 20% penalty.
Yeah.
And so I had like
And then taxes.
Yeah, so I'd put in like $2,000 in a year and a half.
Is that it?
And I contacted the HR person. I was like, I'd like to withdraw my 401k. She's like, $1,600? I was like, yes, please. Like-
Please hurry.
Dude, and you know what was funny? What a windfall that was. I was like, "Whew."
balling,
I
dude.
was flush, man. I
Yeah.
had so much money at that point. I went from 3 digits for like months on end, and then I was in 4 again. I was killing it.
Yeah.
I was
other thing
ready to
that
go.
we
I love
did-
that story. Oh, you were tutoring. You were teaching people
I was
English,
tutoring.
right?
Yeah, I did SAT tutoring. I Airbnb'd my bed to a number of people and slept.
Oh, that
on
was
the living
hilarious.
room. Yeah,
Sleeping
yeah.
on
so
the
We
couch.
exchanged. We like took shifts for going living room and having our bedroom be
Yeah.
Airbnb'd.
Yeah,
Chat, when are you on the couch?
constantly.
Did you Airbnb your wooden block of bed?
No, I think
You got a bed.
You
I
got a
think
mattress by the time it was
Scaled
there?
up.
Okay, nice.
There's a double doona,
Nice.
double comforter.
Double doona.
What do you call them over here?
Yeah, so
Comforter,
flip side,
comforter.
I was very nervous about poverty. I don't know why, but the idea of running out of money was very terrifying to me. And so my solution was to go work for 4 years before leaving and try to bank as much money as possible so I could have the biggest safety net possible. Because I didn't do the stoicism of, oh, I'm going to be okay. I just went, I feel very not okay. So you quit your job a year before me, a year and a half before me?
a year.
Yeah, and you were working full time, and I would go work a full job and then come back and start working on the company at night because I wasn't comfortable with that. So I didn't do the stoic thing. I just accepted my tolerance or lack of tolerance for it and went, okay, what's the solution?
Huge nest
Big
egg.
bank account.
Yeah.
Okay, how do we do that? All right, let's do that. We'll work 2 jobs basically.
I'm curious for the Hoopits, but you weren't comfortable having like no money. I was very uncomfortable not creating that freedom for myself. Like after living with you guys in Brazil, just having a good time. It was amazing, and I was very uncomfortable with going back to another life and going to a 9 to 5. So I did have an uncomfort pushing me.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you guys did as well, even if it wasn't a fear of having nothing.
No, so our first year we each made $29,000, and
Bang, bang.
my feeling was I can do this forever. Like if this is what it is to work, but not crazy hours, and hang out with your buddies and make enough money to by the skin of your teeth, plus Airbnb, plus a couple hayash from tutoring. Whatever, I was like, I could do this forever. This is a completely sustainable plan. So I actually didn't worry that.
But when you were taking about out that super, maybe
when I was
or the 401k.
Yeah, I was like, I can only do this once.
I truly think I worried more for Charlie's financial situation than he did. Like I would work because I had enough money to be okay, right?
Yeah.
I would work so that we could make revenue, pay our expenses, split it in half, and get Charlie rent money. Like that was actually my fuel.
I see.
I think more so than Charlie even.
Because I was watching you, Charlie, because our bank accounts were very reflective of Charlie. I'm like, are we good?
We're not stressed yet. We're not stressed yet.
Cool. To the beach. And at one point you had taken out your 401k and you're spending it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm curious at what the next move is. Do you remember what you did?
After the 401k? Yeah. Oh, I had a list of things that I could do to generate
make money.
And it was I've mentioned this, play guitar on the street begging for dollars. Like it went all the way down to busking at some point, which is don't need a boss. Like I can show up and try my hand at
I
this.
can play whatever songs I want.
And there were other things that were like get a job, but I guess the nicest thing about that period of my life was I had already it wasn't suffering, but for a year and a half done a job that was soul crushing to me. Mm-hmm. And it was like, okay, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to do this runway of starting a business for as long as I possibly can. And when I hit the absolute no negotiating with it bottom, I will go beg for one of those soul-crushing jobs for another year. Okay. And I will try this again. It was like, I am going to repeat this cycle until I don't have to go back to the soul-crushing job. Yep. And I understood. I was like, I might have to.
You might have to. Yeah.
I might have to. Yeah. It might take 4 cycles of this to get all the way through. And honestly, that's what Henry did. Henry quit, went to Brazil, and then had to go back and get a job.
To your question, I have 2 things I'd like to respond to. For one, personally, I didn't really see myself succeed until I was in enough pain to make it happen. So when we were in Brazil, and you guys just shared your stories about your Brazil stories, I didn't create any business or any assets while I was there because I had mommy's credit card, and I didn't need to, and there was no fuel under the fire. And
Henry was technically in college at that time, so my mom thought, okay, while he's technically
I'll pay for his education.
This educational part of life, I'll cover college. I did not receive a credit card.
I would.
Henry occasionally bought me some
acai.
He bought me acais and chicken from mom every now and then.
And then to your personal story, to my second point would be when I realized that I could be successful, and you might do this too, is that I realized I could. Charlie had the conversation with me at the time that I would be in the same exact position if I quit and had to go back to my job 6 months later or a year later. That there was literally nothing to lose, and I didn't actually feel this way or think this way, but Charlie was helpful, and you guys were helpful in realizing that I could just go back to what I was doing, or even at a lower club level, lower monetary level.
No, I think people often think that it's going to be the end of the world if they quit a job, and oftentimes you just slot right back in.
Mm-hmm. So to just wrap this question, it sounds like you want to find out what your floor is, and the answer is, well, you don't know until you try. So
the other thing is you kind of have an inkling, right? If it stresses you, it's going to stress you.
Yeah.
If the idea of it doesn't stress you, it's likely that you'll be okay.
Yeah.
If the idea of it while you're not doing it causes you anxiety, like it did for me, then it's going to cause you anxiety, and you should plan accordingly and get a nest egg. I think we all had a decent idea before we did it of how we were going to feel.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And then we're steered by our internal compasses.
Yeah. I'm saying no one was off. It's not like you're like, oh, I'll be fine, and then it's liquidate 401k time, and all of a sudden you panic.
Yeah.
You lose your mind. You know what I mean? It just didn't happen. So I think you have a good sense. Go with your intuition.
Cool.
Any other questions? Audience questions?
That's it. Thank you,
man.
people.
Audio off?
It's not the end of an era. It's the pause of an era. So thank everybody who listened. This is my camera now. I'm used to this one. Thanks, everybody. This is episode 47. We'll probably get to 50 with a couple of guests and stuff.
In 2020?
Sure.
What?
Peace out, everybody. Thanks for coming on, guys. Later.
Peace.
Yes.